Peter Pan wasn't based on a magical boy who never grew up. He was created by a man who manipulated and psychologically controlled 5 real children. 3 of those boys died young, one in war, one by drowning, and one who killed himself because he was tired of being Peter Pan. The true story behind Disney's beloved Peter Pan is one of the most disturbing tales of child manipulation in literary history. In Disney's version, Peter Pan is a magical boy who takes the darling children to Neverland for adventures. He's carefree, innocent, and just wants to stay young forever while fighting the evil Captain Hook. But the real Peter Pan was based on J.M. Barrie's obsession with 5 real boys. And what Barrie did to those children would today be recognized as psychological grooming and manipulation. The boys themselves later said that Barrie destroyed their childhood and trapped them in his fantasy world. In 1897, Scottish playwright J.M. Barrie met the Davies family in London's Kensington Gardens. Arthur and Sylvia Davies had 5 young boys: George, Jack, Peter, Michael, and Nicholas, ages ranging from 3 to 7 years old. Barrie, a 37-year-old man with no children of his own, became obsessed with this family. He would spend hours watching the boys play, taking photographs, and inserting himself into their daily lives. What started as friendship would become a decades-long campaign of psychological control that would destroy these children's lives and inspire the most famous lost boy story ever written. Barrie began systematically isolating the Davies boys from their parents and normal childhood experiences. He would take them on private trips, create elaborate fantasy games, and convince them that the adult world was dangerous and evil. In his own letters, Barrie described his relationship with the boys as owning them. He wrote, "I made Peter Pan by rubbing the 5 of you violently together, as savages with 2 sticks produce a flame." When Arthur Davies died suddenly in 1907, Barrie convinced the grieving widow Sylvia to let him help raise the boys. When Sylvia died just 3 years later, Barrie legally adopted all 5 children, despite having no blood relation to them. The boys, now orphaned and completely dependent on Barrie, were trapped in his isolated estate where he controlled every aspect of their lives. Peter Llewellyn Davies, the boy literally named after Peter Pan, later wrote, "I have always detested my Christian name, which I blame Barrie for. It has made me something of a marked man." The psychological damage Barrie inflicted on these boys became clear as they reached adulthood. Unable to form normal relationships or escape Barrie's control, the Davies boys began dying in increasingly tragic circumstances. George Davies, the eldest, enlisted in World War I at the first opportunity, possibly to escape Barrie's influence. He was killed in France in 1915 at age 21, shot by a sniper while serving with the Rifle Brigade. Michael Davies, who Barrie openly called his favorite and the real Peter Pan, drowned in 1921 at age 20 while attending Oxford University. He was found in a pool with his close friend Rupert Buxton. Many believe it was suicide. Michael could never escape being Peter Pan. But the most devastating death was Peter Davies himself. In 1960, at age 63, Peter threw himself in front of a London Underground train. His suicide note contained the haunting words, "I am tired of being Peter Pan." Jack Davies struggled with alcoholism his entire life. Only Nicholas Davies lived to old age, but he spent decades trying to distance himself from the Peter Pan legacy that had destroyed his family. When you understand the real story, every element of Peter Pan becomes a confession of Barrie's psychological manipulation. The boy who never grows up. Barrie's obsession with keeping the Davies boys dependent and childlike, preventing them from becoming independent adults. Neverland, Barrie's isolated estate where he trapped the boys away from the real world, convincing them that growing up was evil. Captain Hook, the evil adult world that was trying to rescue the children from Peter Pan's control. Notice how Hook is the only character who wants the children to return to their families. Today, child psychologists recognize Barrie's behavior toward the Davies boys as textbook psychological grooming and manipulation. The isolation, dependency creation, and fantasy world construction that Barrie used are now recognized as tactics employed by predators to control children. The Davies boys showed classic signs of psychological manipulation victims. What makes this even more disturbing is that Barrie wrote Peter Pan as a celebration of his control over these children. He turned his manipulation tactics into beloved children's entertainment. So when you watch Peter Pan teaching children to fly away from their parents to a world where adults are evil, remember, you're watching the fantasy of a man who psychologically destroyed 5 real children's lives. Disney took this story of child manipulation and psychological abuse, removed all the darkness, and sold it to millions of families as the perfect children's adventure, without ever acknowledging the real boys who suffered and died to create it. J.M. Barrie took a family of 5 healthy, happy boys and turned them into broken men who couldn't escape his control. If Peter Pan's true origins horrified you, subscribe and hit the notification bell because we're exposing the tragic real stories behind every Disney character. The deeper we dig, the more disturbing Disney's magical origins become.